Hello, my name is Chamchi Gimbap. I am the political fish. Thank you for joining us again on this evening. There's so many. Oh shit. There's so many posts we've done tonight with G. Willis Whistler and Cameron, but it is my privilege to present to you a very good friend of mine. So please play nice. Nick. Nick, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Nick. I'm a pro-gun liberal with a deep passion, hatred for Trump.
Is that it?
I'm a pro-gun liberal that hates Trump.
But you're a liberal.
Yes.
Would you
Gay
say
rights, universal health care, all of that on board.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. I did actually. Let me just post this link so we can get some other people in here. You say that you're a liberal. You know, in England or in our end of the woods, you know, a liberal is not a lefty; it's more centrist.
I'm more centrist than you.
Probably, yeah.
But they'll say it's accurate.
You believe in like the NHS. You think there should be a central healthcare service.
Yes.
Yeah. That's quite rare when it comes to Americans, don't you think?
I think a good percentage of Americans want it. In fact, I would say a majority probably want it. It's just that big money interest keeps it from happening. Especially once you explain it and once you show systems that work, like Canada and the UK and Germany and, you know, every other developed nation besides our own.
That's a really good point. I'm trying to slow this down because I'm waiting for everybody to catch up. But come on, guys. Come on.
I'm eating chicken.
You're eating chicken? Chimac?
No beer.
No beer. What time is it there, by the way?
4 o'clock in the afternoon.
4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's 4 o'clock in the morning here.
Yep. I had to go pick up my gun. I had some work done on it.
Cameron. Okay, here we go. Cameron. Hello, Cameron.
Oh, hello.
Cameron, this is a good friend of mine called Nick. Nick, say hello to Cameron.
Hello, Nick.
Hi.
Hello.
And this is G. G, say hello to Nick.
Hello, Nick.
Hey, G.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this discussion. What would you like to talk about first, Nick? Do you want to do the gun thing?
We can.
We can. Okay. If you want to do.
Does everyone understand my politics first off? Because I'm not a normal pro-gun guy.
Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you what. Nick, introduce yourself and why are you not the average pro-gun guy? I think so. Go for it.
I am not the average pro-gun guy because I recognize American gun laws won't work in other countries. I also recognize that the NRA is basically a terrorist organization. I also am very liberal. I support universal health care. I support gay rights. I support regulation on big business. I support a lot of left-leaning issues. I am not a typical pro-gun conservative. Fuck the conservatives. They are what is destroying this country.
Okay.
That's brilliant. G.
So, yeah, I mean that's cool. It is weird because we in Britain, every time there's one of these mass shootings, of course, it makes the news, obviously. we struggle to understand the culture, and probably because the people who get interviewed are the spokespeople for obviously the hard right and the NRA and the conservative take on things. So why do you support the Second Amendment then?
The Second Amendment is the final check and balance on my government's authority. That's why.
What? Sorry, let me just chip in there. You realise that the government has, predator drones and shit like that.
Yes, and when people bring that up, I like to talk about Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam. Let's talk about Afghanistan against the Soviets too. I mean, rebel warfare has been incredibly effective against modern armies with nukes and predator drones and everything.
G?
Yeah, I mean, that would have been my question. I mean, I have no idea what would happen if. I think my political position is much further to the left, because I am an anarcho-communist, which means I don't agree with the state at all. So I would be opposed to the state, and I would say that as far as a check and balance goes, what would be the trigger for recognizing the state is something to oppose? At what point would you then oppose the state?
For me, it would be when Trump fires Robert Mueller.
Right. What would happen then?
Congress either impeaches or we, the people, rise up and overthrow the president by force.
Which do you think? I don't know. Not sure to make of that.
Cameron? Okay,
Yeah.
go for it, Cameron.
Do you think that would be successful at all?
Depends on the numbers involved.
Mm.
You do know that the American state is the most armed country in the world, or the state. And the people as well. It'll be
Correct.
a bloodbath.
Oh, absolutely. It'll be a bloodbath. Tens of thousands will be dead.
Well, it would be civil war, surely. I mean, that by any definition,
Basically,
that's
yes.
what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I'm pro Second Amendment.
Right.
And also, the thing is, I'm 28 years old, and I have spent 20 years of my life living in other countries that aren't America. The gun culture is woven into the fabric of the American culture, unlike any other nation on this world, on this earth. I was born and raised in Germany. I spent most of my adulthood in Korea. The gun laws in America would never work in other countries, and I recognize that. They're just sewn into the fabric.
Okay. Do you think that any of the sort of moderate calls that get made after one of these sort of shootings, background checks and restrictions are reasonable, or?
Yeah, some of them are reasonable.
Are they practical?
For example, the last mass shooting, the Parkland shooting, had the law simply been enforced, it wouldn't have happened. There was another shooting where an Air Force member shot up a church. Had the Air Force done its job properly, that man would have never been able to buy a gun.
Right.
So
Okay.
I'm not anti-gun control. Like, I don't think everybody should have the right to own a gun. There needs to be limitations.
Like Nick, so I was having a discussion with a very conservative guy called Cade a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking to him and I said, look, a blanket ban would never be practical. You could not, even
Civil war.
Yeah, it would basically mean a civil war. You couldn't do it. But he was like, well, you would have to do it, for things to work. And I was like, well, no, you couldn't actually do it. There's no way you could enforce it. And he's like, well, you'd have to go into people's houses and take the guns off them. And I was like, well, no, that wouldn't work because you'd kill
There'd be a lot of dead
people.
cops.
yeah, there'll be a lot of dead cops, a lot of dead people. A lot, it just wouldn't fucking work.
Yep.
Would you agree with me on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's just say
can I just stop you? Sorry. My name is Champchi Gimbop. I am the political fish, and it is my privilege to welcome Nick, G Whistler, Cameron, and our most recent addition to it, Road Dog Does Politics. Road Dogs, would you please introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, I'm Road Dog. I do YouTube channeling. So hey, what's up?
Hey, we're just talking about guns and stuff. I don't know if we can pick up where we left off. Nick, would you be able to pick us up where we left off? Considering, can you reinstate what your political position is, and then tell us what your position on guns are like?
I am a pro-gun liberal, so I agree with most liberal policies outside of gun control. Now, I do agree with some gun control, but yeah, I'm a pro-gun liberal. I don't think the AR-15 should be banned. I think people should be able to buy whatever ammunition they want and what guns that they want, and it's a fundamental right of being an American.
So, essentially, I mean, this whole thing with I don't understand the mechanics of the weapons, so you have to forgive me. It does sound to the untrained initiate that the assault rifles thing is a bit of a problem. I mean, I can understand a pistol, perhaps, something like that, but these big guns, the sort of military grade ordnance, I can't see how that would be necessary, and I don't see. I mean, do you see what I mean?
Yeah, and the challenge with that is that long guns, like the AR-15 or hunting rifles or whatever, represent a tiny fraction of the gun violence in America. In fact, the biggest portion of gun violence is actually handguns. But that doesn't make the news, because if someone's going to go do a mass shooting, they're not going to do it with a handgun. They're going to do it with a rifle with lots of ammo. However, that's not even a significant portion of the gun violence in America. It just seems like it because it hits the news.
How would you solve the gun crisis and these shootings?
Well, first off, you have to recognize you're not going to completely solve it. I think there would be some good ideas to put into place. Like, for example, I think we should have a no ID law on mass shooters. When there's a mass shooter, media outlets should be incentivized not to identify who the shooter was. And they should focus on the victims. They should focus on the victims. Because, like, for example, with the Parkland shooting, which is the last school shooting in America, I guarantee you that there is some 17 or 18-year-old kid out there who has been inspired by that shooting to go shoot up his own school, and he just hasn't done it yet.
Do you really think that's right? That all the misery and all of the suffering that these people go through, that inspires people to go out and shoot up another school? Do you think that's one of the triggers that gets people going to go and shoot up their school?
I do think that plays a role.
Really? Yeah. What does the panel think? Road Dog, what do you think?
Oh, sorry, my mic was muted for a second. I don't know. I'm just sort of interested in the general gun culture in America, and how, because of the whole Second Amendment thing, that it is a lot of times it's sort of misrepresented, and a lot of people use it as an excuse just to have guns for the sake of it, like any old sort of machine gun and semi-automatic, and I just think it's unnecessary, and I think that even if you did set gun control laws, like people make the argument that, oh well, they'll just find other ways of like going out and killing people if they want. So yeah, I think, I don't know, like do you think that the culture in America would make it, you know, people would want to go out and like get other weapons in order to kill people, or I don't know.
The American people would never stand for the repeal of the Second Amendment. It just would never happen.
All right.
Yeah.
So, like, I wrote a piece on this, and it has reflections on what's been going on in the UK. Do you mind if I read it, just so we can be reminded of it? Nick, you read it, didn't you? No, I don't know.
Isn't that what you read out to me when we were talking about it?
Yeah, exactly. But
wasn't that the thing that I caused you to write? Like you wrote it because of our discussions?
No, it was inflated. I felt that I should. Because of. Yeah, go on, Sizer. Go on.
Against another one just showing up. I was a tad late. I was watching the football. Hi, by the way, Mr. American guy over there.
Sorry. Let me introduce you. You know, we've got Road Dog, Cameron, and G in the chat, and Stizer is a late one. This is Stizer, the scouse with the mouse. Say hello and introduce yourself, please. Take the platform.
Well, I'm just a gobby scouser. I'm the same as everybody else. Just an opinionated person who happens to be scouse. But I will say on the point which just raised, which you just said, is that Americans would never do that. Well, I've read your history, and I don't mean to be patronizing or anything, but slavery was legal in the United States under the Constitution. You amended it.
It was also, yeah.
Now, hold on a minute. What my point is, you could amend the Constitution not to take away the right to bear arms, but you could amend it where you could facilitate that the right to bear arms would be specifically for law-abiding citizens in regards to how. I mean, you'd have to structure it a certain way so it's legally acceptable to Americans who hunt and stuff, because there's a lot of people in America who don't use guns for the nefarious purposes of what they get up to.
I own 7 of them.
Whatever. Yeah, the criminals. But what I would say is, not touching the Constitution is actually not historically true. So I think education would be a better way to go about that, and you can change the Constitution if you have a convention of the states, and you know that as well as I do.
Absolutely. And to take on this, and you are absolutely right that slavery was once legal, and I believe it was the 13th or 14th Amendment that outlawed it.
14th and 15th, basically.
Yep. The thing is, the difference between slavery and gun control, well, the Second Amendment.
Well, no. The one thing I would say is, hang on, how many people died in reforming slavery? Like,
a lot.
In changing that one thing.
What about it?
How many people died?
A lot. You had a civil war. I mean,
yeah,
exactly right.
At least 600,000.
There was a shit ton of them.
Yeah. But the difference between slavery and the Second Amendment is that even there was divide among slavery, even among the founding fathers. I mean, the 3/5 compromise was brought along to simply try to get a deal done. In fact, when the Constitution was being written, the founding fathers had even discussed that one day slavery would end.
Yeah, the right to bear arms was actually for the South. It was the right to bear arms was factored in because down south it was recognized. I mean, this is before slavery ended, so you got to understand the context, the historical context of America when they actually did the Second Amendment. It was to have militias, because what they were scared of, if we let the slaves go free, it's going to be chaos, and they needed militias. That's where the right to bear arms came from. It's not because there was tyranny or the British. That's complete bollocks. In fact, that's a myth. Anybody would read a history book would know that's complete shit.
It
But
depends
we
what
accept-
history book you read, mate.
It does.
Yes, it does, obviously. But what I'm saying is, it in a sense of, let's go to the modern day. Let's forget the history. Let's not forget it, but let's put it in modern day terms, right? If you say to any average American, should the government take your guns? In fact, every American would say no, even if they're on the left, right? They don't own them, but thinking of the right to take something away from someone is abhorrent to most Americans. Exactly why they hate big government, because that's their mentality is government bad, people good, kind of thing. I know that sounds really sad to say that in like a very simplistic term, but that's
I mean, Trump is bad.
Trump's. I don't know even know what Trump is a blip in American history, so that's the thankful part.
Really? What do you
No,
call?
I'm sorry. We've had people
What
that
was the 80s?
Trump look like Satan.
What was the 80s?
No, we've had people in Britain that are worse than Trump, to be quite fair. So, in their times,
Ronald Reagan. Ronald
I don't
Reagan is basically like a Trump again. Like,
no, I
all
don't
been
get.
there. Like,
Hold on,
what about Nixon?
I don't want to get
Nixon,
bogged down. I'm
Nixon.
trying to answer. I'm trying to answer this guy because I think he raised.
Let him answer.
No. Go on.
In terms of taking away guns, I think every American recognizes you in modern day terms, right? You've got the right to bear arms. Now, I think most Americans would agree that we still want the right to bear arms, but we still want these fucking background checks and all that shit, because 60% of Republicans, which is a lot if you're talking about gun control, and was it 84% of Americans want background checks or stricter gun control, right?
Absolutely.
Now, that's what they're saying is we recognize the constitutional right for us to hold weapons, because the vast majority of Americans aren't crazy. That's the point. More people are killed by American police officers than the average American shoots the Americans, if you know what I mean. So what they're saying is, all we want our politicians to do is just do basic things like background checks. It's not a big deal. I've got no problem as a British citizen with the right to bear arms. The problem is the politicians are bought off by the likes of the people.
Well,
like
this is the thing.
That's where.
Stizer. Go on, Rodog.
Yeah, I was just going to agree with you that ever since bribery was legalized, that the government basically no longer works for the people in America. They work for the corporations that buy them off. Like, so for example, the big oil companies, the big pharma companies, all the rest of it, to basically enact laws that work for them and make them money.
And
so that's why the NRA has so much influence over like legalities and such like.
It was Mussolini who coined the phrase. It's called corporatism, when corporations have more clout than the government. And it's not just, and people point the finger at Republicans. It's not just Republicans. Look how many Democrats vote for NRA. It's complete bullshit.
It's more Republicans.
I'm a Bernie bro. So I'm a Bernie bro. Just saying. I love Bernie.
I'm a Bernie bro.
What do you think of the NRA then, Nick?
I think they're a terrorist organization that needs to be stomped out.
Well, no, honestly, I would fucking agree with that. I would totally agree with that shit. They are.
Nick. All right, Sty, sound off, mate. Nick, thank you very much. I wish there was more of that fucking shit in the mainstream media.
No.
Yes. The fucking NRA are a terrorist organization.
And they're funded by Russia too.
Yeah, they are. But well, who's the second biggest arms dealer on the planet after you?
UK.
No, Russia.
Well, it might not be actually. Lockheed Martin is a big deal.
We're third. No, we're third. We're third. I'm not trying to say that we're not, but I'm saying this with.
Actually, So this is my stance on the NRA. There's a really nice gun range near my home.
That's a really good way to start a fucking debate. Like, there's a really nice gun range near where I live.
And it's really nice. And I would like to go to it. But the only way I can go to it is if I join the NRA. And when they told me that, I told them to go suck a cock.
Yeah. See, I agree with. I'm on the side of Nicholas here. You see, because I'm good at history and shit. I don't think guns is the problem in America. I think the elephant in the room is, one, the lack of education, and also mental health. And I think a lot of people miss this out completely. Yeah. I mean, that guy who shot them kids, he was flagged to the FBI
a lot.
It's like, you know, so for me to come and be like, I'm British and I know better than an American, and you know, swagger, that misses the point of the fucking problem. And I don't like people like that because they make me want to fucking vomit.
Okay, well, this is what my point is. You know, when I say with the tragic events in Florida recently, I thought of chip in with my thoughts. Everybody's talking about a blanket ban in the USA. Now, I never thought I would say this, but I really don't think this is a solution to the issues affecting American society. Nick Edgar and I have had many conversations on this issue, and I do respect an American's right. Now, here's the key thing. With sound body and mind.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's the point, isn't it? That's the point.
With sound body and mind to bear arms as expressed in the Constitution. I do, however, feel that there are regulations on owning guns should be much tighter, and all the online and gun show loopholes need to be closed. I do have some ideas about this. This is another discussion.
Yep.
Dude,
but even Republicans.
I want to do the gun show loophole because that's a little bit of misinformation there.
There is a gun show loophole there. You know, you can
not technically.
Like, even if you try all of doing all of these things and like closing loopholes and stuff, it's never going to happen as long as the NRA have as big an influence as they do. Well, no one's going to listen. So
this was something that was brought across in Florida after the mass shooting, when they had, what was his name, Ted Cruz? Was it Ted Cruz? Yeah.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't Ted Cruz. It was that little other shit. He was like
Marco Rubio.
Yeah.
Marco Rubio.
Marco Rubio.
Thank you.
It was him, and he was
got roasted by a 17-year-old kid.
Yeah, exactly. He got accosted by a 17-year-old kid. It's like, oh, so you're not going to accept. You're not. Yeah, I fucking loved it.
At town hall or something.
Yeah,
that was on CNN.
Yeah, so you're not going to accept any more money from the NRA, are you?
He was like, well, people like my agenda. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
The best political speech ever is like, oh, it's my agenda. No,
it's their agenda.
Yeah, as long as you're willing to get paid, then it's your agenda. You fucker. I mean, this is why I love Bernie Sanders and this actually a real progressive movement in America. The actually is. Don't be fucking bewildered by like these media corporations who tell you like we're all Bernie bros and fucking feminists and misogynists and shit just because we want a bit of a fair society. It's complete bollocks. They do the same thing in Britain that they do. You've just seen it, witnessed that with Jeremy Corbyn. They're doing it with Bernie Sanders. Oh, Bernie Sanders has a fault. He's a Russian spy. You know, because he wants a bit of fairness. Fuck that shit. You still can have the right to bear arms and be a fucking logical person. I'm sorry about your luck. And I hate people who are like gun control freaks as well. Like gun control, we don't live in America. America's entire country was based on the Wild West. We watch Wild West movies for a reason because that's what shit happened. Although embellished, I will give you that. But in regards to how crazy it was in them times, it's true. You needed a pistol to defend yourself. Now, that's their culture. But the fact is, the vast majority of Americans are law-abiding citizens. It's the crazies who have access to guns because America sells them at fucking Walmart is the problem.
So
That should be. You shouldn't be able to go and buy a fucking gun at Walmart.
Stop.
there's also something else. And so like normally I think Republicans are fucking idiots because they generally are.
I know
However-
this guy already. I want to add you on fucking my Twitter.
But they do have a point. So Jay, you know me. Am I a violent person, Jay?
Not at all.
No. Yep. All right. When I was little, and the Republicans talk about this.
Hang on. Stop. Nick, you were little at one point? Really?
When I was a kid.
He was trying to be sarcastic.
Dude.
Shut up, Samchi. You fucking
When I was a
Let him
kid,
finish.
so Republicans talk about all of these behavioral drugs that kids are being, and they point that
Ritalin,
yeah.
shit like that. Yeah.
I used to be on Ritalin,
Mm.
and I was on Ritalin from the time that I was 6 to the time that I was 12. I kicked out kids' front teeth. I tried to stab my friend's mom. I would chase kids around with baseball bats. I was a violent kid on Ritalin.
Yeah.
And then when I was
This is
12,
fucking speed, man.
No, hold on. Let him finish because this is important.
No,
when I was 12
it's fucking
No,
speed,
let him
man.
finish. Hold on, just let him finish.
when I was 12, my mom took me off of Ritalin. And since I've been in 12, I have been in 2 fights.
That's
And
because
both of those were self-defense.
Yeah, because the psychotropic drugs, they are literally there to fuck with your mind. And the only reason why they put you on it is because in America, it makes you money as a doctor. You see, in the United Kingdom, you get a salary. In America, you get pro bono, which means the more you sell, the more you get paid. That's why
Listen,
private
doctors-
healthcare is bullshit.
Doctors-
So how can you trust the doctor then? Like, how can you trust him?
Not in
Is
America.
he want to cure you, or is he want to pay for his yacht?
He wants to pay for his yacht.
Yeah.
People are selfish. It's inherent. It's why healthcare should not be profit-driven.
Or it's not
Exactly,
inherent.
thank you.
Or gee,
No, it shouldn't. It
Dude.
shouldn't be. I mean,
Yeah.
but Americans are waking up to this shit. The whole
die.
scam. Oh, sorry. You said G. I thought you meant like G, like as in homie.
Now,
Oh, I mean,
Sorry, G.
Oh,
I forgot. Sorry. I apologize, bro.
now I do have gun
yeah.
control measures. I'll
Oh
let you go.
shit!
go on.
Okay, I'll go on. There are gun control measures that I think will help. One, the HIPAA laws in America need to be modified. Do you guys know what HIPAA laws are?
No.
I'm kind of familiar with them, but
Okay.
I would prefer you to say them before I get them wrong. To be fair.
HIPAA laws are laws that govern the information about someone's health. So, like, for example, my doctor can't run around and tell other people what's going on between me and my doctor. This prevents background checks from including mental health checks. So even if a psychiatric ward has determined that this person is a crazy and shouldn't have guns, it doesn't pop up on the background check because the HIPAA law prevents it.
Wasn't this something that Donald Trump? There was kind of an act that
Yes, Donald
this
Trump
should-
supports that.
Yeah, exactly. Wasn't this kind of a thing like a couple of months ago that Donald Trump like?
It was.
Yeah.
And
That's something else.
He signed
That
an
was the
executive
health.
order at
Oh.
some point last year, basically making it easier for people with mental health issues to get a gun.
Yeah, it's
He did.
basically it's basically easier for you to buy a gun if you're nuts than to be a terrorist.
the thing is, Trump's an idiot, so we can't really count on him.
Yeah, that's also
And then the next thing that I think would help is waiting periods. I actually agree with waiting periods when you buy a gun. And the reason why I say this is not because of these mass shootings, but recently in my hometown, there was a guy that went into a gun store, bought a gun, passed his background check, of course, and then walked out into his car and blew his brains out.
yeah, that's
There should be like a 2 or 3 day waiting period. You go in, you pick out your gun, you do the background check, and instead of the background check taking 15 minutes, it takes 72 hours.
What's
I
your
would-
hometown? Just for reference, what's your hometown?
no. Don't give that because you dox them on the fucking internet.
No,
Georgia.
I'm not going to dox him.
No,
like,
he's
it's
gonna dox
massive.
himself. No, the point is right. The point is, I will agree with the whole background checks. But what I would say is, and this is a good joke, and I seen this on Bill Maher, and I'm not a really big fan of Bill Maher because he's like a fucking centrist stooge. But he did make a good joke about like, fucking hell, people, before you can get a car, you need to take a driver's lesson. Before you have a gun, you should at least do something fucking similar to that. Not just because you can buy it as a commodity. It's a weapon of war. You know, a handgun, I would suffice to say, okay, in the climate of the United States, given its history, yeah. An AR-15, fuck no.
Yeah.
Fuck no.
I think
you
it
only
is
need that
funny
on a
that
shooting range.
it's funny that in America it's easier to get a gun, and you can get a gun before you're able to drink.
You're legally entitled to buy a gun before you can kill somebody with a fucking AR-15. And they literally sell them in Walmarts. It's like as a British person, that's like going to Tesco and they sell machetes and that's really.
I would be okay with the 21.
Sound off. All right, guys. Sorry, Chi, go for it.
What was I going to say? It was about the human nature thing. It's not hugely relevant. I mean, I personally don't think that human nature is. I think human nature is dependent on the economic systems that we live under. So I don't think. I can't even remember what this was in context to now.
Okay, nice one.
Never mind.
Road Dog, go for it.
Yeah, like just in like sort of context to what Sty was saying, it's like, imagine in this country you went into Tesco's and you could just buy a gun, right? You could very easily, if you could get a gun in the same day, you could very easily just decide if you wanted, I'm going to shoot up this whole store because I've got a gun. So I could just shoot someone. It's that easy. And it's like...
So do you think, Road Dog, Road Dog, do you think a blanket ban is the way forward?
Well, I think you should definitely ban the very dangerous ones, like the AR-15s, because like nobody needs one.
No.
But like if you
no, hang on, Sty, please.
But like I reckon, well, there isn't a blanket ban on guns in the UK. As long as you've got a license and you've been checked out, you can get a rifle if you want to go hunting. So I mean, like there are limits, but I think because of the Second Amendment, I think there'll never be a full blanket ban on guns.
No,
just as long as you've got control.
Sty, please, mate, please. I'm not finished yet. Nick, like, if there was a blanket ban, there would be a situation where there would be a gun amnesty, and would you be prepared to give up one or two of your guns?
Absolutely not. You have to kill me first.
And then lies the problem.
Therein lies. Okay, yes, Sty. This is where you can join in. This is where the problem lies.
I'd like to ask. I mean, you said you had 7 guns. Why do you need 7 guns? I can't put it any other way, really.
I don't.
Is it like a safety thing? It just makes you feel
like a hobby to me.
No, it's
actually,
not. Listen to what he said. It's a hobby. Listen to exactly what he said. It's a hobby. He collects guns like fucking nerds collect stamps in Britain. He thinks collecting guns is like collecting.
Sty, can you not speak for my friend? Like, let him speak for himself.
But I'm being brutally honest, and that's the way Americans are. Now he's never gonna do anything.
Can you not speak for my Sty? Sound off, mate.
So do you want to clarify that, Nick? Was I wrong?
So like I'm not the type of guy that carries his gun around with him and things like that. The first gun I ever bought, I bought it for my own protection. The second gun I bought was for my own protection because I wanted a smaller one. The third gun I bought because I saw it in a James Bond movie and it looked really cool, and that's been pretty much every purchase since then.
So Nick, was I wrong then? Was I wrong?
Yeah, you were wrong.
No, I personally buy guns my primary reason for buying guns is it's like a hobby. You know, it's like buying computer parts and things like that to
Yeah,
me.
exactly, right? Exactly. But do my computer parts kill people?
They don't. And to that front, I would never ever advocate for American style gun laws in, say, the UK or anywhere else.
But
It,
can I ask a
Yeah, but
question?
you're being exceptional.
Okay.
Can I ask Nick a question? Do you go when you go out? Do you conceal carry then?
No. The only times I carry is when I drive for Uber, and I will keep my gun in my under my seat. Is when I drive for Uber, and that's only for my own protection when I drive for Uber.
Okay. So the
And
rest of the time you keep them at home then?
Well,
Yeah.
Rowan, you have to be in a certain state to have concealed carry laws as well.
Yeah, I know that. I was just wondering what.
Actually, there's no state that completely bans concealed carry. There are cities
You
that
have to
do.
get a permit though.
You do have to get a permit, and I have that permit, and there's nothing stopping me from doing concealed carry. It's just with my day job, I'm in and out of hospitals a lot, and I'm not allowed to have guns inside of hospitals. So,
Well, thankfully,
Yeah.
but
Thank
given
God.
some check, you probably fucking will sooner or later. But can I ask you a question though? If you lived in the United Kingdom, would you feel the need to use a gun or
No.
carry one?
That's a
And
good
why-
question, Sty.
Why is that
That's a
though?
really good question.
I
Why
don't
is
even
that?
really feel so. The most dangerous country I've ever lived in is America.
Yeah,
Oh,
no shit. Everybody knows that.
Dude, right? This is something that I
Come on,
didn't
Champs,
tell
get
you
on to
about Nick. Nick is he's proper European, mate.
It's
aren't you?
Deutsch, kein Problem.
Yeah, you're
Oh,
proper
nice.
European,
Yeah.
aren't you?
Nice.
We met in South Korea, but you grew up in Germany, didn't you?
Yes, I have lived a grand total of 8 years in the States, and I'm actually thinking about leaving the States and going back to Korea.
Yeah, we'll
Or come back to Europe. Woo.
I could. It's just that
Probably
the
not.
jobs for me are better in Korea than they are in Germany.
Okay. Well, I don't know what your job is. I'm not going to get into that.
I'm in sales.
Oh, well, I do a bit of sales. But what I would say is that I think... I mean, to go back to the issue of gun control,
What happened to your videos, Di, mate?
I turned it off.
Why? Why did you turn it off? Turn it back on again.
There we go. Hey, I'm here.
There we
Not
go.
really. There we go. I'll turn it off.
Oh, fuck off. Turn it back on again.
What? No, fuck off. No. Anyway, point being is, right, to get back to the point of the issue of gun control, I accept the Second Amendment in how it's interpreted today. And I think
Interpreted, really.
Whatever. Fuck you. English teacher over there. Point being is, I would just say that I think the vast majority of Americans would like the law changed. I don't think they want to amend the Constitution or anything that serious. I think you should do on drug laws. That's a different story altogether. But when it comes to gun laws, I think the vast majority of Republicans, the vast majority of even Democrats agree that we don't want to get rid of the Second Amendment, but at least, do something about the gun laws because they are pretty foolish.
What do you think, Nick?
Well, okay. So one thing I want to address is everyone keeps, and I'm going to fill out this point. Everyone thinks like the AR-15, like you keep talking about the AR-15, but the majority of gun violence is done with handguns. The vast majority of it is done with handguns. Like
officers.
The reason why the AR-15 makes the news is because it's a very popular gun and
with mass killers.
More people die.
Yeah, but it doesn't happen as much. Now, when it comes to gun control, I absolutely agree with some gun control measures. Like one of these people made the point that you don't just buy a car and drive it without being taught how to drive it. Exactly. A major portion of gun deaths in America are accidents that happen that would have been prevented with simple gun safety. Other things that I would support is requiring all gun owners to carry insurance.
Well, I would just suggest to you what's the mentality of Americans where they feel the need to use a gun. It's fear. That's what that's what propagates your society is fear of other humans, and that's why you need a gun. It's like if I lived in Britain, I don't go outside the house carrying a knife because I'm scared I'm going to get knifed.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
you see the point here I'm trying to get? It's
And
got
I'm just like you.
No, I'm not denying that, but what I'm saying is I think the societal issue and the mental health of Americans is the problem. Is the fact that you require a gun because everybody else is scared of everybody else. In a society where you're all supposed to love each other as Americans, you do a pretty shitty job at doing that.
Well,
And that's
actually,
why
I
you're
was
all
gonna.
G, hang on. Sorry, stand off. G, can you read some comments, please?
I was gonna read comments actually. Jack James made a comment.
Road Dog, go for it, mate. Sorry.
Yeah, well, Jack James in the comments has asked a question to Nick saying, have you ever been in a situation where a gun has kept you safe, like where you've had to draw a gun against someone, for example?
Not someone, but something.
Like an animal.
Like a cow.
Yeah, a hog.
Like a cow
wild
or
hogs.
a sheep or a dog. Like
wild hogs in my area can get pretty aggressive around people.
just run away, dude. Fuck's sake, if I see a wild hog, just run
The
away.
problem is the hog was. Yeah.
Was it chasing you, dude?
No. I had gone to a client's business that was out in the country. A wild hog was going up and down the driver's side of my vehicle, and the only way to get that hog to go away was to fire off a round. We didn't shoot the hog because I didn't want him to shoot my car, but that was the only time a gun ever came in handy for my own safety. And you could probably use,
I mean, like, in relation to what Stizer was saying, I think he's gone now, but like in the UK, when you leave your house, you don't feel scared that someone's gonna come along and shoot you because most guns are banned. So it's like the whole thing to do with fear, and the fear of like other people who could be carrying. Like if you take that fear away, if you take the object of the fear away, then you take away the fear itself. So.
The problem is that fear still exists in the UK. There's plenty of people carrying knives with them.
Really, I really think that Road Dog like hit the nail on the head. Is that you take away the guns, then you take away the fear, surely.
I think you do, but the problem is that fear is still there. The people that carry knives for the safety. I mean, I know people who do it.
I know people who did it in Korea and Germany.
Yeah, but you only really find that in like really urban areas, like especially in city, like in London, you probably get that with gangs.
Yeah, and to go back to one of my original points, why I'm such a pro Second Amendment guy is, to me, it is the final check and balance on my government.
He does have a point there, right? Okay, so Road Dog, right? Remember when Gina Miller took the government to the High Court, right?
Yeah.
And you remember what happened in the press the day after?
Yeah, enemies of the people.
Yeah, enemies of the people crush the saboteurs, right? So he does have a point. He does have a point.
Now, and that's, especially with someone like Trump in office. That makes me even more
okay. At least we
I'm
don't
quite
have
surprised.
a Trump.
I'm quite surprised someone hasn't, taken the Second Amendment literally and like assassinated him. I'm surprised that's not happened yet. I was expecting something like that to happen sooner, but it hasn't.
Have you ever been in an area where the president comes through?
Yeah, I guess it's very heavily armored.
So like I was on a military base. I grew up in the military.
He's an army rat. Like,
yeah, I'm a military brat. So I was on a military base when George Bush came through one time, and how the Secret Service blanket that area, they do a really good job at protecting the president.
Yeah.
You could take a rocket and hit the president's limo and be fine. The president would be okay.
Well, that's an interesting point.
Like, we were planning when he comes to the UK. I think a lot of people were planning a lot of protest activity.
Yeah.
If Trump comes to the UK, I intend on coming to the UK to join your protests.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. But I think a lot of people were planning to take a lot of like rotten vegetables and fruit and stuff to
That sounds like a great idea.
Just for the channel, right? Like, I would like, because Nick, you're kind of new to the channel. I would like you to declare, and everybody else here, your political stance, what you believe in, what you think is wrong, and where you think morals are being desecrated in society today. And Nick, can you start for me?
Sure. I am nowhere near as far left as Jay ever. Kamshi.
Samchi, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm never going to say that name right. But I'm pretty liberal when it comes to American politics. I'd probably be more centrist if you were to consider me on a European model.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I probably would. But I'm pro-gun. I think what's destroying this country is Christians and Republicans.
Brilliant. Bro dog.
Me, I consider myself sort of centre-left leaning. Ever since I've been allowed to vote, which was since 2010, I voted for a variety of different left-leaning parties. I voted Green, I voted Lib Dem, and more recently I voted Labour. I like Jeremy Corbyn. I'm not like a sort of cultish follower. I don't agree with absolutely everything he says, and worship the ground he walks on. But I think he's a good guy, and I think he's very principled, and I'm hoping that in the next election we elect a sort of more progressive leftist
when you
party.
say progressive, what would be the biggest thing when you say progressive leftist? What is that?
I'd say being able to fund public services more, giving people who work in the public sector, so police, nurses, doctors, teachers, a pay rise, increase the national minimum wage, things like that.
You understand that this is when you're talking about. Have you ever read any Marx?
No, I haven't. I know. Well, yeah, I know of Marx, obviously, but I haven't
read some Marx. Right. The thing is, he's G. I'm going to get round to you in a second, mate. The thing is, Marx was very much a critic of capitalism, and he realized the how capitalism kind of worked against itself. So the more, especially during the Industrial Revolution, right? So he was witnessing a mass automation of certain works, right? Are you with me, Brodog?
Yeah.
And then he realized the contradiction, that is that if the automation goes too long and there's mass unemployment, who's going to be ready to buy the products that are being produced? This is the Marx contradiction.
Sort of, in a sense, it's sort of basic economics in that if you starve a population...
No. This is Marxist economics. It's not basic. Yeah. You say it's basic, but this is Marxist economics. And if you actually say this to any ANCAP, then they'll say, no, you're just a red person. You're a communist. You're like, it's common sense though, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I was going to say that if you starve a population or a populace of the wealth that it has or any degree of wealth, if you take it away from people, they're not going to have enough of that wealth to be able to contribute it back into the economy and the society itself. So if you decrease people's wages, and you make them significantly poorer, what people like the majority of people, like sort of working class people, spend money because they need to spend money, not because they want to. So whereas rich people, they once they've earned all of their dollar and stuff, they'll keep a significant proportion of it sort of stashed somewhere, and they won't spend it. So if you have less going in, like, and circulating round, then there'll be less people will not be putting in as much as they would like to.
Indeed. G, what do you think?
Well, we're discussing it earlier. I mean, my position is very, very left, insofar as I'm anti-state and anti-capitalist, because I'm an anarchist. I don't believe that the state is required. So that's kind of why I was asking earlier about the whole in response to the sort of the check and balance against the state, because what that was alluding to was at what point would you decide that the state had gone too far? Because I think the state has already got too much power and does too much, and it has done all sorts of awful things, but there isn't an armed uprising that has taken place. So that's why I find that argument kind of curious, but that's my position.
Do you not think, G, that there is a place for the evolutionary socialist or communist? You understand that position? The evolutionary would be, yeah. So this would be a position where we would go through the keys of power, rather than revolutionary, which is a bottom-up armed response, or a Trotskyite response, I suppose, would be the idea. It would be more of a kind of a top-down, where we actually get the people that we need to in Parliament, and then we give the powers to the bottom up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I'm not convinced that's the right way to go, because that's the reason.
Well, like
it's being grassroots led.
Yeah. I understand that. Look. Dude, right? Here's the thing. I believe that me and you have the same end goals in mind, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But right, how we get there is going to be different, right? Now, like I said, I would say I was an evolutionary socialist, and you say you're an anarchic. Yeah, so you want to dissolve the government, right? And so there's no need for government, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
there's no need for a state.
There's no need for it. Oh, okay, yeah. I appreciate that. I really do. But what I would say is we have to deal with the cards that we've been dealt, right? So we have to deal with government. We have to deal with the state. I don't like it as much as you do. Yeah. But we have to deal with it. But I'd rather deal with it from the bottom up rather than the top down.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. If you do it from the top down, you're just giving people power. And how do you stop them from becoming oppressors? Just the same. We need to. The community needs to take over, and the community needs to make the state irrelevant
Yes,
David
I,
Graeber.
I agree with that. But in the situation we are now, like we need the keys to power, and the keys to power are through Parliament, right? Whether you
Well, I
like
don't
it or
agree.
not, whether you like it or
Well-
not, the keys to power are through Parliament, which means it's evolutionary socialism. That's what I think.
Well, you're not going to get that from Parliament.
Well, we are through Jeremy Corbyn and our new Labour Party. I feel that.
I don't, he's not a socialist. He's a social democrat. He's not offering a socialist agenda.
Well, lots of
Mm,
the media, like the BBC and such, and many others, like to paint him as a actual full-blown socialist.
I think
Yeah,
he is. I think he is. Bottom line, I really think he is a socialist, right? But I think he's had to pragmatize. I think
that's the problem.
Okay. Go on. Carry on.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, he's not. His platform is a mild social democratic platform. He's not offering anything remotely akin to emancipating the means of production at all, and he won't be able to, because there's no way that the parliamentary system and the forces of British capital and the EU and the media and everyone else.
I know, but
is
fucking
ever going to
baby
let that
steps,
happen.
mate. Baby steps, mate. Baby steps.
Well, we can take this. We can take the steps ourselves.
It's annoying how the word socialism is used as a buzzword, and people don't really, they just hear it and just think that's sort of similar to communism, and they immediately shut down. And it's like, well, if you actually took the time to actually look it up, there's a huge definition of what socialism is. And I think people would just hear it, and it's like a negative connotation for them. So it's just like, well, Jeremy Corbyn, socialist, not voting for him.
And this is exactly the problem we've had with Stop the War Coalition and all these things. He's saying one of the biggest things, one of my biggest heroes actually, and being my channel, I will say this right now. I really love Vladimir Lenin, right? And the reason why I love him, right, is because that during the First World War in 1918, he said that I will withdraw all of our troops from the First World War, because why should workers from my country go to war with workers from another country when essentially we are on the same level? And I completely respect that. And this is the situation. Yes, I believe that Jeremy Corbyn is a socialist. Yeah. And yes, I am a fucking socialist. And I think that I am an evolutionary socialist rather than a revolutionary socialist. We do have to take baby steps, and we have to get the keys to power. And I'm sorry, G.
Well, the problem is I think you're essentially going to be ending up playing their game. You're fighting the battle on their terms. Well, the whole point of my position, not wanting to speak for other anarchists, I never claim to be a huge expert, so take what I say with a pinch of salt. But I think that we have to basically take it ourselves and decide.
Whatever you're going to say, I love it, mate. It's all good.
Yeah, that's cool.
But
we take it ourselves.
So obviously, as an anarchist, what would you do in order to get the system that you prefer in this? What methods would you take, along with other people who sort of agree with
Yeah.
your
What kinds of direct action, I suppose, is
Yeah.
is
Well, we should support any working class action. You know, and we need to build class consciousness, and that's the main thing. People have to be aware of the reality of this society that we live in. That there is a capital class, that there's a working class, that there's people in power, and that power is never given; it's always taken. And that they do not act in our interests, aren't going to act in our interests, and that voting once every 4 or 5 years, and that, you know, that's gerrymandered constantly, particularly in America. But we take that and we say, well, you know, that's not enough. Democracy comes from people deciding to do what they want to do. That's why I said earlier, make the state irrelevant. If there's a problem in the community, you solve it yourselves. If there's, you know, if you need to, you know, build a well, don't ask the council to do it and then have them say, oh, we can't afford it. You do it yourself. You build, you know, that's how you build.
I agree.
You occupy buildings. You bloody well smash the state. That's what it comes down to.
I completely agree. I completely agree. Like, but you say all these things, right? But they seem to me very, very unrealistic. Road Dog, you wanted to say something?
I would, yeah. So in that sense, if you were going to take on a sort of individualistic sort of mindset, all commodities would then be in effect worthless. So, you know, you wouldn't have to
of course, yeah.
You wouldn't have to ask permission for anything, and you wouldn't have to really buy anything.
Well, I mean, that's the end state. Is that? I mean, that's a communist state, would be moneyless, and so there's no there's personal property, but there isn't private property, which is the capitalist definition of like the means of production stuff. That's capitalist private property rights are things that need to be smashed, and unjustified hierarchies and authority that can't justify itself. I mean, that's part of the process, is questioning whether these authorities are justified. So it's
I need to on that same vein, Road Dog, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I need to ask you, how do you define ownership? Right? Like, I mean, what is it that defines ownership? When you say, "Oh, this is mine," what is it that makes it yours? I mean, I need you to define that, because it's very important for.
That's quite a large question that requires a lot of like sort of scope in a sense. But I think from what I have experienced, you know, based in the sort of materialistic world that we live in, I guess.
Yeah, it's a materialistic idea. And how did you come across this materialistic idea? Is through capitalism, right?
Yeah. So
this idea of ownership.
It's essentially handing over.
A concept. It's a concept.
Handing over monetary wealth in order to receive something back that is then yours. I think that's the idea of what ownership means to me, at least. It's probably quite a shallow idea, but it's what.
Well, this is the thing, you know. Okay, so what is? I'm sorry to ask you this, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want to. And by the way, if I was, what is the thing that is most dear to you? You can't name names or humans. It's physical things, something that can be
like an object, or
yes, exactly. Like a teddy or something. I don't know. I like.
Oh God, I don't know. I actually don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, I don't. To be honest, I don't know many people that could answer that question.
I mean, like, I consider my health and my life to be valuable. but
this
obviously,
this is the
I'm
thing.
putting
This is
myself
the thing.
before
Your health, your life, your
family.
friendship,
Yeah.
your family. These are the things when you actually talk to someone and say, hey, these are the things that I want to be prominent in my life. You know, why are these things not prominent when you go out to work? Okay, why are these things not prominent when you when you decide what you're going to do for a living? Why are these things not prominent when you decide what you're going to do for the rest of your life?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess because
I'll tell you why. Because
yeah.
sorry, mate. I'll go on. Sorry, I was gonna be completely mansplaining then, but yeah, go on. Sorry.
What was I gonna say? So I mean, having a national health service where you don't necessarily have to worry about your health because you're going to receive it free at the point of delivery, treatment or whatever you need. That becomes like you put it on the back burner because you know you're set up if anything happens. So you don't really have to think about that. And we live in a relatively safe environment. I mean, we're not. Our country is not like a war zone.
No. I would disagree with you there.
Okay.
We are actively, like in the UK, we are actively destroying our environment. You know, you saw like BBC QT like 2 weeks ago, and you know it was crazy. You know, with fucking Farage on there, like saying
what
that
talking about
there's
fracking.
Exactly right. You know? And there are people like
when I say that our life, what I basically meant was our lives are not immediately in danger, so we don't live in a war zone where a bomb could strike us at any given moment. And that's
again, I would disagree with you in the fact that I'm in South Korea, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So in the last 18 months, the earthquake situation has gone from 0, i.e. no earthquakes at all, up to 5.7, right? Now, any building that's in South Korea is not rated above a 6.0. So we are 0.3 away from a national disaster. Okay. And the last earthquake was last night.
Yeah.
Okay. And it scares the shit out of me. It really, really does.
And
and because of this exponential disaster, something that's outside of our control, i.e. ecological or environmental or whatever you want to call it, it scares the shit out of me. So
I get that.
And I will say, like, especially with the weather in the UK, really, do you think the weather in the UK right now is March weather?
No, absolutely not. And you've got a point there, definitely. So yeah, I think if you're putting it in the way that you are, so like environmental and ecological, you've definitely got a point in that when we're not going the right way in terms of trying to fix our environment. Which leads back to the original point of why don't we think about these things when we have we live our work lives, etc.
I know, right?
It's a conundrum and a half.
G, please talk, please.
I think we don't respect the planet at all. If you just go out or in the UK, let's say if you go on a walk into the woods, you just see the amount of fly tipping there is. I think as a whole, we need to change how we think about the planet. Because what we're doing is not sustainable at all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Cameron.
agree.
Yeah. Cameron, virtual fist bump to you there, mate. Definitely.
What I reckon it is, I reckon the reason why we're not acting fast enough in regards to climate change is because all of this is happening from when we first heard about it in like well, when I first heard about it, I'd say in the early noughties.
Naughties.
Like this happens, climate change is happening incrementally, like very, very quite slowly. So in that regard, we don't pay as much attention to it, and we're just like, oh well, the ice caps are melting.
Do you think it's the the frog in the boiling water situation?
Yeah, I think also it's because it's not happening sort of to us, like sort of we just don't notice it happening because it's just it's happening very slowly, and two, it's like it's not really affecting us in our countries where we live, so we're less inclined to do something about it.
This is the thing about like Britain, right? It's
quite insular, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It doesn't get earthquakes. It doesn't get any like bad weather. Well, apparently it does get mad weather. The beast from the east and stuff. Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, we got a bit of snow flakes. There's a bit of snow, and the country guy's still hot.
Apparently, there's an influx of snowflakes.
What it's snowing right now, so we're getting some.
That's funny on so many levels, Cameron.
But it's scary. It's scary though, because we're at a point where if we literally don't do something right now, as in, in the next couple of years, we're fucked.
Yeah, but I will say the main reason we're doing nothing about it is money. There's more money in oil than anything else.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's true, actually.
And
the green
is quite.
Sorry, the green industry, as it were, is pretty big. It's just that the capitalist interests are slow to change, and people they stick with what they have. They are the big petrochemical industries, and that's they could change, they could divest, they could evolve, but it's easier for them to stay with what they are. They have power.
Well, I think it is, but I think oil is still profitable, more than green energy. And I'll say this as well: there is alternatives out there. If you look at Iceland, they have hydrogen-powered cars over there.
Yeah. But the thing is, whoa. The thing is about Iceland is they're a very privileged part of the world, and the crust there is very, very slim. So geothermal energy that they've been running on for a very long time. So it's very difficult to have a comparison between England and Iceland. So I just want to say that. The other thing is, I need some ice because my glass is dry. So I'll be back in a sec. Right. Road Dog. Do you reckon you can run the chat and stuff and keep these little boys under control? I'm sure you can. Can't you?
Yes.
Yeah? Nice one. Thank you. Thank you very much. Right. I'll be back in a sec.
Okay. So the chat is looking as follows. Right. Average Joe has joined saying, if we're realistic, an unorganized group of gun owners wouldn't be able to stand up against the world's most powerful army. And that's to do with the gun control argument. So what are your thoughts about that, guys?
What happened in Vietnam? Can someone remind me?
Vietnam, wasn't that the fight against the apparent communists in Vietnam and ended in a pretty much complete disaster?
Yeah, and wasn't it a bunch of farmers with some, AK-47s that did it?
And napalm gas, etc.
And they fought the U.S. military.
Environmental areas.
Absolutely. Small arms stood up against the strongest and largest military. In fact, the U.S. military dropped more bombs on Vietnam during the Vietnam War than all of Europe during World War II.
Well, yeah. And also, I think they didn't have a very good strategic view of the local area. I mean,
my point is, you don't need tanks to fight tanks.
No, that's true.
Tell that to the South Koreans, mate. Sorry, mate. Sorry, mate. I mean, like during the Korean War, like essentially the only reason why the North Koreans got so far south was because of the fact they had tanks. You must understand that, Nick. Right?
My point is, guerrilla warfare has proven perfectly effective against modern militaries in the past.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
I think that he's got a point there.
Yeah, it's a fair assumption. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Cameron, who's in
Go
chat, says I'm a socialist libertarian. I'm sure you can explain yourself, Cam.
Well, basically, I want a very small state, based on individual liberties, but a socialist state at the same time.
Cameron, can I ask you a question? Is it cool? You all right?
Yeah.
So, what do you feel about the elderly or the infirm?
Well, should always look after them.
Okay, so that means how are you going to pay for it?
So, what I think we should have is individual areas like towns and cities have their own devolved administration, basically, and you still pay taxes to help them, of course. But
yeah, I think you're exactly right. The problem is with tax right now is that nobody knows where it's going. Like as far as we're concerned, it's going towards weapons to Saudi Arabia or something. Yeah,
it is.
That's the problem.
I have an idea actually that I've just had that. I think
bear with me, Road Dog. I'm like, sorry, Ro. Like, I'm really, really sorry. Like, so like, it would be cool if taxes were spent locally and then people could, see how it was spent. But yeah, go, Road Dog. I hope I didn't.
Yeah. Like when you have you sign your declare your tax returns. I reckon it might be a good idea. I don't know how this would be implemented, but say if you had a governmental spending like database where everyone could access, if it was, let's say, online, and you could everyone who isn't like a member of that country, say, or that nation, could access it and find out everything about what the government was spending on what and how much they were spending on certain things, so that it was completely open and public, and people would then know, and then that government would become more accountable, and then the public can then demand what they should be spending money on and what they should be prioritizing.
I definitely. I think it's all about the evolutionary powers, And G, you'd agree with me on this. I like I said, I'm an evolutionary socialist, but the end goal is that you actually devolve powers to the whatever province that you actually have, and within that province you you actually say, okay, we're going to pay tax, but this tax is going to say, okay, this is going to pay for, the power for this province. This is going to pay for the transport in this province. It's going to pay for the education in this province. It's going to pay for, whatever it needs to be. And then 20% of it would then go to central London, to Westminster, and then they would do like the mass infrastructure projects. This is the thing. The problem is nobody can see where their tax is going. They can't see it. I think there is the problem.
Yeah. And I think it would be massively helpful if the spending of if the people could see where their taxes were going in some way. At the moment, we can't, and we just have to take the government's word on it that we trust them. I don't trust them at all to spend money in the right way.
This is the problem. Go on. Who wants to speak?
The problem with this, if the governments tell us what they're spending taxes on, there'll be scandals coming out. I guarantee it. There'll be secret black projects to be doing for the military.
Well, they had a scandal a few years ago of them, the MPs expense scandal, where everyone found out what MPs were spending money on or claiming expenses on.
Like heating their fucking stables to keep their horses warm and shit like that, man.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck?
Like jacuzzis and paddling pools.
Yeah, they have to take care of their horses, so.
Oh, sorry, to keep my moat clean. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You have a moat?
I think someone claimed expenses for having some coffee on a train as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I think more recently, someone claimed expenses for the bill that his water bill that he had when he had a bath.
Yeah, dude. You know, there's a book about this, right? Based on fact. It's really, really good. It's called Parliament Limited. Check it out. It's really, really good. I really recommend it. It's a great book, and it talks about how expenses work, and what about the registration of interest? Do you know what that is?
Yep.
And it works on how the registration of interest works. And do you think the ceiling on the registration of interest is too high? Because it's like £70,000, I think.
Well, the problem is that
obviously,
you've got a system that doesn't work. I mean, adjusting the number isn't going to change the fact that you can buy politicians. That's essentially what it is, and they can spend. The expenses system's a joke. It's clearly a joke, but they're not going to do anything about it because it's in their interests.
I think the book works more between like the revolving door, So it's like, especially people like George Osborne that will create or dictate how taxes should be reported, and then work for a company that will divert the loopholes that he actually created. That's weird, man. That's really fucking weird.
I mean, again, I have to just repeat myself. It's the system. That's what has to go. The minute you have a class of people who get paid to do this on behalf of the rich and the powerful, then that's what's going to happen. They're not going to change. That's not going to go away.
We actually, me and Angels and I actually had a really good discussion about this. Road Dog.
Hello.
Hello. How are you doing? You're friends
Yeah.
with Angels. We need Angels her because she's a conspiracy theorist. Like we need her like conspiracy theory and create her ideas in her like we were talking about education and how education is essentially like people are stitched up from the word go. You have if you're from a working class family, you have no chance of actually becoming someone in parliament or becoming prime minister or something, because you're essentially stitched up, because you don't even know the difference between a communist and a socialist, or a socialist and a capitalist, or a free market capitalist, or a Keynesian capitalist, for instance. There are massive differences between these things, but it's very difficult to know these differences unless you've read something.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it stems from where you're born, and like where you're raised and how you're raised, and if you come from like a poor family or a well-off family, and what school you go to and what you're taught there. And the whole sort of idea is fed to you that if you work really hard and you study and you do all this, and you go by the book of what we tell you to do, then chances are you'll have
No. I think it's complete bollocks what you're saying. Sorry, mate. Road Dog. Like I respect your the way that your political analysis. I really respect, but your educational analysis, I think, is absolute shit.
Okay, well, explain.
Sorry. I really didn't mean that to sound really harsh. I love you, really. By the way, what I would say is that I really think that the people on the lowest rung, people that go to normal schools, or we'll say normal schools, right? Normal. So they go to a normal middle school, normal high school, this thing, do your A levels, get a degree, this kind of thing. Yeah, they have no chance, absolutely no chance, and they'll stitch up in two ways, right? The first thing is, if you don't go to Oxford or Oxbridge or Cambridge or whatever, then you're never going to get a good job. The other thing is, unless you have the bank of mom or dad, and you can do a what do they call it? You can go and do a job for free. What do they call that?
Internships.
An internship, exactly. Unless you can do an internship, then you're fucked. Right? Absolutely fucked. So you tell me that the entire situation is not stitched up for the privilege. Right. The other thing is, and this is something I was talking to Angels about, right? It may be a conspiracy theory. I don't know. Okay, so we've got all these things, and we know these things exist, right? Now, we've got the 11+. You know what the 11+ is? It means you can go to a grammar school, and a grammar school, which means you're basically launched into, you can get scholarships and all sorts of things. But the thing is, the 11+ test is stuff that you've never learned before, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So the only way that you can actually pass the 11+ is if you've actually had private tuition. So how is that fair when private tuition costs, like, I know, because I'm a private tutor, I know how much I charge right? I charge $50 an hour, right? That's really expensive. So, you know, it's, you know, I really feel sorry for people trying to pass the 11 plus when up to 11 years old, you haven't got a fucking clue, mate. Yeah.
Well,
And
yeah,
this is supposed to be the lifeline for the left.
But that's essentially what I was gonna say anyway. I'm
Sorry
agreeing with
about
you.
Oh, I know you're gonna agree with me anyway.
No, but that's what I was gonna carry
Yeah,
on
I
to
know.
say that. But
Yeah,
I
go on.
agree that it's just a sort of a lie that they feed you, that in order to do well you have to do it, you have to climb this ladder and do X, Y, and Z.
It's like asking a fish to fucking climb a tree, mate. It really is the 11 plus. That's what it is. You know, it is asking a fish to climb a tree.
Yeah.
And it pisses me off, right? It really does. I mean, what the Conservatives are trying to do is they're trying to consolidate their power, especially now, and you can see it.
I mean, what really annoys me about the Conservative Party is that ever since they got into power in 2010, it's like they walked into Downing Street like it was their, like they were born to it. Like
You said this. You said that. I watched a video of yours actually, and you said the thing is that I don't like about Conservatives is that they feel that they're born to rule, and you can't stand them. Yeah, did you say that on one of your videos?
I can't remember, to be honest, but they're just because they stem from the ruling classes in like the 18th, 17th centuries, and that's essentially where, if you go back far enough, they're like the ruling class, the landowners, the landlords.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Exactly
and
right.
It's just that their whole entitlement to power. It just really grinds me, like whereas if you compare them to Labour, where it's like it's not, I don't want to say it's the opposite, because a lot of people in the Labour Party are also, you know, have got a fairly entitled
I do feel that. I mean, the problem with the Labour Party now is we're still trying to shake off that Blair Right shield. Like,
yeah, but at
that's
the same
problem with
we're still trying to accommodate them, as opposed to like some people say we should deselect them and throw them out, but then other people say no, it's a broad church.
We need I know we still need them, right? Did you see not Christopher Peter Hitchens in the last BBC QT, because I thought he was brilliant in backing up actually the Labour Party, and there was a question about Jeremy Corbyn. Yeah, like it was about 4 or 5 weeks ago, right? And it was brilliant, right? And what he said was, okay, and I thought it was brilliant. This is why it stuck in my mind. You know, I'm a bit of a fan of the Hitchin family, to be honest.
I prefer Christopher, but okay.
Oh yeah, of course. But he's dead now, you know. So we just gotta go with his brother. But he has his brother's wit to, you know, cut to the bone, right? And the question was about Jeremy Corbyn and his ability to lead the Labour Party, and he said, "I don't see what the problem is. Of course he's fit. You know, at least today we have a socialist running a socialist party, because you have to bear in mind that both of them, Christopher and Peter, were revolutionary socialists back in the 80s. You know, so you know at least they can understand it. He just wishes there was actually a right-wing person to run the Conservative Party.
Yeah.
This is
I
the
think-
difference, and I fucking love this. You know?
Yeah. And what people forget is that the Labour Party was literally founded by a
A
socialist.
socialist, exactly. It's a socialist
It's like
party.
that's the
It's
heart
a
of the Labour
socialist-
Party.
Yes,
That-
exactly.
The original
And-
founding ideals, and then
Yeah.
like 70 years later, no, not 70, about
Yeah.
100 years later, say, people are like, what do you mean these socialist values? Oh
Yes,
my
of
goodness.
course. Exactly.
Like, what are you talking about? I'm completely
It's a
against
socialist. It's a workers' party for workers'
Yeah,
people, for workers' rights,
exactly.
mate.
Exactly.
This
That's
is
why,
what the Labour
that's why
Party
they're called
is.
Labour. It's for the
Yeah.
working class people, the labouring public. And then it's because I don't understand. Like when Tony Blair got into power in '97, he got in with a landslide, and everyone loved him. And now people don't like him because of Iraq. But then when someone like Jeremy Corbyn comes along with true socialist ideals, and
He's not
with
even a socialist, mate.
social democratic.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, social democratic, but this is him being pragmatic. You know,
Yeah.
if he had a landslide like Tony Blair did back in 1998, it would be a whole lot different. I mean, there'll be no nuclear weapons. All like that 200 billion will be plumbed straight into social care and there'll be so many change changes,
Yeah.
So he's been so pragmatic,
Yeah. But what I was
Fair
going
play
to
to
say
him.
was
Yeah.
why when someone like Jeremy Corbyn becomes the leader, do people dislike it so much when they dislike Tony Blair, who was very, almost the polar opposite to what Jeremy Corbyn is. So like, what do they want? Like, I don't understand.
I think it's media. I think it's just hostility from the media, and people just taking it on board.
Yeah.
Hey, Road Dog, right? While I've got you, do you mind if I do my question time with you? Is that cool?
Yeah, sure.
It means that I have to end this stream and start another, right? Because, my questions are that awesome. G and Cameron, can you join us in a bit when I refresh this stream? Because we've been doing it for hours, mate. Is it cool?
Sure. Yeah, it's cool.
Is it
I mean,
cool?
you can do. I mean, I might log off in a day, so that's fine. I mean, I don't mind. We've had a chat and that's cool.
All right. I'm gonna end the stream anyway because I'm gonna do Q&A with Road Dog.
Okay. Like, what sort of questions do you have in mind?
It's all right. It's all a bit of fun. Don't worry about it.
What's your bank account? Where do you live?
Where do you live? Yeah. Yeah.
He's a stalker.
No, it's fine. It's like favorite color and shit like that, man. It's totally fun. No, honestly, mate, it's totally cool. All right, cool. Thank you. My name has been Championship Bob. This was Road Dog. Sign off.
Bye.
And G
Goodbye.
and Cameron.
Goodbye.
Like, subscribe, all that shit. We'll catch you in 5 minutes because we'll be back with a Q&A with Road Dog. Getting down with that shit. Woo!
See ya.